record so other people can tune in later. So I'll share my screen and we can kind of look at what marketing you get on Airbnb specifically when you give length of stay discounting. But that's going to be a huge factor to help you fill in Monday through Wednesday or Sunday to Thursday, versus just Friday to Monday or, Thursday to Sunday, those types of bookings. And what I mean by marketing, Airbnb will give you specific call outs on your listing that say, the host is offering lower rates than average, or it'll say weekly discount and it will display that on your listing or push your listing higher in the algorithm for guests who are searching for longer stays. So that's another easier way to get your weekdays filled. Um, Looking at
So
those
when you
length.
do that, you only discount the during the week ones and keep the weekends higher, even if they book 7 days.
There isn't a specific way in Airbnb or your pricing hospitable to just give a weekly discount on weekdays versus on weekends. So if you have a weekly discount, it's going to apply to, if a guest books Wednesday to Wednesday, the discount's going to apply for that entire week. So you can't say it only applies for Wednesday and Monday, Tuesday out of that week long stay. Um, there are other ways. Let me get my Airbnb pulled up so I can share kind of what I'm talking about here. Um, Give me a second. Let's go traveling. Okay.
Because most of my weekends are all filled from now till July, August.
Yeah. So you're definitely going to be working on filling in those gaps, which is good to start thinking about. Okay. So you guys should be able to see my screen here. So let's just click on, this is one of my listings, and I do offer a 7 night stay discount. So let's just jump out to June, and let's say a guest wants to book Sunday to Sunday. So you can see that I'm going to get, this is an example of one of the callouts. It's going to put this green sticker, these dates are priced lower than usual. And then I get, they call this strike through pricing. And it's going to tell the booker that they're getting a deal. So not only are you getting marketed, I guess getting these little tags on your listing, you're also going to get a boost. I don't think boost is really the right word. Um, Airbnb is going to push your listing, incentivize you for having those discounts by helping you out a little bit. So if we then jump over to the booking page, you can again see, so this is where bookings convert. This is where guests make that decision. They're looking at, okay, am I ready to actually do this? And it will say the weekly stay discount, and they get to see in green they're saving 500 bucks, $519. So psychologically, having those length of stay discounts is really going to help you. I know, Steve, you just mentioned a lot of your calendar is already filled from, I'm guessing, Thursday to Sunday checkouts or, you know,
Yeah, Friday to Sunday or Monday. So
yeah, yeah. So there's another way to work on filling gaps. What you can do is, let me just make sure no one's waiting in my waiting room here. Okay. What you can do is go into, let's just jump over to one of my calendars here. And actually, this isn't going to be a good example. It's a bit harder when, okay, so let's just say you've got, so this is an example from last July. So if you've got a gap from Sunday to Friday, you can select these dates. I'm not going to be able to do it on past months, but you can click on these dates and it'll highlight them and you can create a specific rule set for these dates only and add a specific discount. So let's just do an example of that. One second. I'm gonna actually,
So you do that on Airbnb site?
yes. So
Okay.
I believe you can do it in hospitable. At this point in time, I am so used to doing it in Airbnb. So I'm going to demonstrate it that way. I'm trying to find a good example on my calendar for you guys. Okay, this one should be a good one. So let's try this. All right. So you can see, it didn't really benefit me this time. It's not always a guarantee that adding a specific length of stay discount to fill a gap is going to work, but it's always worth a try because you get additional marketing benefits when you do this via the OTA. So let's say you want to book this gap Saturday to Friday, okay? These 6 nights, right? Yeah, 6 nights. So you can click on this date, and then you're going to have an option to create a rule set. So you'll get a little pop-up that says create rule set. And then you're going to be able to say that if a guest books 2 nights, let's just say they book that Sunday and Monday, you're going to give them 5% off. Let's say they book the entire 6 nights, you can choose to give them, whatever percent, let's say 15%, 25%, 50% off. But whatever date you apply that rule set to is the specific date that gets the discount. If you want the entire gap to have the discount, then you would select that rule set for the entire gap. So the rule would apply to the pricing for each specific date. So I know that is probably new and a little bit nuanced, but that's one way to kind of fill in those in between gaps and get some additional benefits from the OTA saying, "Oh, look, you get a discount." And it'll look similar to this. It won't say weekly stay discount. It will say, trying to remember. I think it says long stay discount is how it labels it, because that's the specific rule set, and it'll give you those green numbers with the reduced amount. So guests feel like they're getting that discount. They can see it visually.
And it only applied to the days that you picked then.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. So that's one way to kind of customize pricing for a specific day within a gap versus applying more generalized customizations via price labs that will affect your entire calendar for however many months you have your calendar open.
Who overrides then? So if you got in Price Labs, you already got one night stay discount, 2 night stay discount, 3 night stay discount for midweek and not weekends.
In price labs, at least I don't know of a specific setting
I think
that
I have that set in hospital.
inhospitable. Yeah, you might. And that might be the method of doing it that I just have not updated myself on because I still do it in Airbnb. So it could be the same
But
thing.
who
Just
would, if I have that set in hospital and I go into Airbnb and I change that rule for a certain amount for the gap now that's stuck between my weekends.
it
Who
will
overrides? Who overrides?
usually hospitable will override since it's the system
Okay.
connected to the OTA. So in that case, if you have those length of stay specified discounting via hospitable, it constantly refreshes out to your Airbnb. So it will push that to Airbnb. But
But
if
if
you
I go on Airbnb and I pick Monday to Friday
Mhm,
in between my gaps now,
mhm,
and then people only book 3 nights, and I got a 30% discount on 3 nights. But I
mhm.
put in Airbnb that length of gap has another 15%. Is it going to take 45% off then?
I don't think I'm following your example. Um,
Because you got two sets of rules, one in hospital, and it's for 3 nights, but they don't book 3 nights, they book 5 nights.
so if you have I think that's a situation that is very unlikely to cause any issues where you wouldn't be getting double discounting if you're doing your pricing in hospitable, because the hospitable pricing, regardless, is going to override the settings that you have in Airbnb. It'll push out the pricing. If you're just doing the rule sets in hospitable, I would just do it there.
But I don't
And
know. I don't know if you can do. Maybe you can price them open days in hospital too. So
yes, that's what I was saying earlier is I think that they've updated that. I'm kind of keeping it a little old school and going specifically into Airbnb and doing the length of stay discounting there because that's the way that my muscle memory is working as of now. But I would recommend looking into that in hospitable. So choose one or the other with doing those specific length of stay discounting, either do it in Airbnb or do it in hospitable, not both, or it's going to get really confusing. Kind of like your question in general. It would be really hard to decipher what's price is getting pushed and what is being prioritized, if that makes sense. So I would pick one or the other. Yeah. And eventually, once I get caught up, hopefully I'll know how to do this in hospitable and then I can teach you that way instead of teaching you through Airbnb, the length of stay discounting.
well, through Airbnb, it's going to show that, or will it? If you do it in a hospital, is it going to say that the date price lower than usual? Will that still come up?
Good question. So since I'm not familiar exactly with all of the pricing method and modalities in hospitable, since I just do them in Airbnb, I'm not totally sure, but I'll do some deep diving and see. Um, I'm not totally sure. I think that's a really good question. I'll definitely look into that. But if you do it in the OTA, I can guarantee you 100% that you will get these little flags and you'll still, yeah, I don't know how many people are just doing pricing in hospitable and doing length of stay discounts and things. Maybe Becky has, and she'd be a good person to ask. Um, I would imagine you'd still get certain call outs or tags, but I'm not positive, so I don't want to speak too soon before
So you
knowing.
can look them up yourself on your own. Just stay as a traveler, and you could check up on your own if you did it
Yeah,
like you're doing now. You're in as a traveler, not as a host. So you can look
exactly.
at your own sites, your own
Yeah.
place, and see what
Yep.
it. Okay.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. That's a really good method. I do that a lot. I think it's easy sometimes. There's been so many changes. So we've got our price labs, right? And we have our base price set and price labs, and then our customizations that essentially tell our base price what to do. Then, now I'm talking about specific strategies within Airbnb to try to fill in gaps and to get different call outs on your page. Then we've also had a change to the host only service fee. And then we've also had the change where pet fees and cleaning fees are all wrapped into one. So I think it's a good example for everyone who's in this call and anyone who's watching later. It's a good example of how things change rapidly and you've got to kind of learn to go with the flow and make adjustments. And it takes some time to really play around with viewing what your own listing looks like based on the different changes you're making. So it can be trial and error. Maybe you've made a change in Price Labs and then you do some length of stay discounting to fill gaps in Airbnb. And like you just said, Steve, go into your listing, view it as if you're a potential guest and make sure you're not accidentally giving a $5,000 discount. Make sure things are looking good and on track. Another thing I want to show you guys that you can do within Airbnb specifically is when you're in, let me get back to this other page. I'm going to go. And I'm going to talk a little bit about looking at competitors, and this could potentially help you fill in weekday gaps too. So bear with me while I pull up. Let's do, okay, let's just do this here. And I'm going to jump. Okay, I've got, all right, I'll share my screen again. So I've shared this before, and I just want to remind everybody, if you're starting out, or if you're someone who's like, hey, I know how much time I have, I know my skill set right now, and I'm still learning the ins and outs of creating a market dashboard on Price Labs. You're still learning the ins and outs of how to set comps on your own, really specifically. This is a really fast, easy way to do it, kind of just really simple, I guess. So what you're going to do is in hosting, you're going to go into your calendar. You're going to click whatever listing you want to look at. And all you have to do, let's say, okay, so this is June of this year. Let's say I want to see how I'm priced out compared to similar listings. Airbnb has done a lot of that work for me. And yes, I'm only speaking to Airbnb. This does not apply to your comp sets in VRBO, or how you're comparing over there. This is just Airbnb. So let's say I click, I want to know for the 18th, 19th, in 20th. For those nights, I want to see what's going on in the market real quick. So you're going to click over here and you're going to click this little highlighted or underlined section that says similar listings. You're going to click on that. And then what's going to happen is Airbnb is going to tell you who's already booked and who they are comparing your listing to. So you can see booked listings. Most listings with reservations during these dates were an average of 444 to 665 per night. And then you can kind of look around and see. So this is my listing. And then it's telling me that these other properties are already booked. I don't always, I like to make sure to go in and actually test that and see if it's pulling in accurate information. And that's just doing your own due diligence and seeing if they're actually booked and those are actually the rates. You can also check on AirDNA what nightly rates properties get booked at. Um, then you're going to go over to unbooked listings. So it's telling me that most listings with availability during these dates are an average of 544 to 815. That's quite a range. So here's my listing again. And this is what my average nightly rate for those 3 nights I selected is pulling up as. Here's someone. I'm really familiar with my market, so I know pretty much all the properties in the area. And I know that, okay, this property is priced a little bit lower than me. So I'm going to click and I'm going to see, okay, they sleep two more guests than me. They have one more bedroom than me. Their amenities are pretty similar. I have a hot tub and a pool table. They've got a similar amount of reviews than I do. My reviews are a little bit higher. I have a few more guest badges, the little top 10% whatever badge. This guest does not. So I'm pretty comparable to this listing and they're priced here. So I can either say I'm going to hold out because I know that I'm still going to, it's not that far off from one of my top comps. And I believe that my listing is a little bit better. So I'm going to leave it within that, $100, $150 difference where I think a guest might still book mine because so I don't need to come down to this amount. Then, I'm looking over here. Another property um, only has 4 reviews. This is not a comp for me. A property that's brand new, I'll keep an eye on it, but newer listings tend to have lower pricing. It's just not really a comp, but it's good to know kind of where they're priced at, so I have an idea of what's going on in the market. And so then, you can see the examples. I would jump around, see what's going on, make sure that my pricing's not 2,000 a night when everyone else is kind of in this 600 to, 800, 1,000 maybe range. The caveat that I have for that is this is also a really fast way to weed out the hosts that are using professional hosting tools like property management systems or pricing systems because you'll start to notice if you do this, let's say once a day for a week and you really familiarize with the common listings in your area, you'll see some properties that are literally $700 a night weekdays, weekends, holidays, June, July versus your slower January, you'll see, okay, that host does not use dynamic pricing. We know they are leaving money on the table. I don't even care what they're doing with their pricing, because they're not hosting the way that I host. So you get that's just a good, easy way to kind of familiarize. And then you should get familiar with the listings that are consistently getting booked, that are a lot like yours, and try to pay attention to when they're getting booked. So this property, they're kind of an outlier, right? And so I would go, they have these mountain views and they're right on the water. It makes sense that they would be at this price where I don't have these. I have a different kind of mountain view. I'm not at the top of the mountain and I am not on water. So it wouldn't make sense for me to be 1,400 a night necessarily because the experience is that different. So, my photos are better, my amenities are better, I'm sure. I have more reviews, but our review counts are similar. So, it's just a good way to be like, okay, am I in a good range? Am I priced right, or am I priced too high, or am I priced too low? So,
But when you did this, you just went on your calendar for it?
correct. Yes. So, make sure you're in hosting mode. And then at the top, you'll see the calendar button.
Mm-hmm.
And so click that and then click on whatever you probably have, whichever listing you want to check. Just click on that one. And then you'll see all these dates pop up. And so what you'll want to do, since a lot of your weekends are already booked, you're going to go in and you're going to look at the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays and see if something you could do is say, okay, I know my weekends. I'm getting booked solid. I have no hesitations about my pricing. Things are good. You could look at, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, do a little bit of that comping and comparing, find your best competitors and just always meet them where they are or go slightly below them and you'll get booked before that other property. So it's a little bit of manual work. This is why there are professional revenue managers who spend all day doing this, and have, all the data that I was just talking about in Excel sheets and in Price Labs, all the things. It can get really specialized, and it is how you set yourself apart, but it doesn't mean that you're incapable of doing your own pricing if you have the time to kind of manually go in and do these things. What follow-up questions do you guys have about this comping method? Because I think it can be really helpful.
How are you checking when other properties, comp properties get booked? Like, are you going on a regular basis or does it show you the date that it's booked? Like, are you just like, okay, I know these top five are my most similar and like really tracking what they're doing?
Yeah. So I typically, I probably won't do I'll need to be more prepared for this kind of to, I guess, demonstrate better. But in Price Labs, you can see when your competitors are getting booked. It won't say like the specific date necessarily, but when you're going in and looking at your specified comp set that you choose in Price Labs, let's say, let's say you do pricing on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You can see, you're going to have a better idea of when properties are getting booked and at what pace. And then you're also going to use Price Labs to look at the booking lead time averages. So, those are the two methods that I use to know when the other properties are getting booked. And then also manually doing this exact process and staying familiar enough with what's going on. I'm boutique enough that I don't have 100 listings where the revenue management and comping pricing systems and operations are probably wildly different. But since I have a boutique, smaller, less than 10 listings, I am able to stay super familiar and I'm in one market. I'm not spread across the US. So if you're planning on scaling and having more properties all over, it's going to be a little bit different and you're going to have to learn all those different markets. But yeah, I would, to answer your question, Dana, I would do that more in Price Labs, track that better in Price Labs, um, and knowing the lead time and pacing information for my specific comp set that I choose. Otherwise, if you don't want to do that, just going in here and being like, oh, okay, they got booked. It's not a formal way to do it. You don't have to necessarily like pop it into a spreadsheet or anything like that if you don't want to. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, it does. Thanks.
Yeah. Yep. You don't necessarily have to be systemized and structured when you're first starting out. And if you only have one listing, three or less listings, I would say you can still kind of get away with not really being super systemized and just staying familiar throughout the week with getting your calendar booking. But once you go above that, if you really want to start having some strategy, I feel like um, that's just my 2 cents. And that's kind of the methods that I used. Also, there are some really good revenue managers out there if that um, is something you're looking into. It can be a game changer. I think for 2026, the competition is just, we all know competition is getting stiffer, I guess, because there's so much good information out there, and a lot of the professional hosts, like all of us, are kind of catching on to that. So it's just like with any business or any industry, staying on top of those trends. Otherwise, you will fall off because your competitors will outrun you. Um, on that note as well, I think that just a lot of what's going on, last year, 100% depreciation came back for short-term rentals, for people who are buying properties and able to write off for cost segregation studies and fully depreciate properties in year one, uh, because of administration that went back to 100% last year. And so a lot of hosts went and bought properties for that specific tax reason. So that's why sometimes we see an influx of properties in the market. It doesn't necessarily apply to arbitrage units, but just knowing what's going on in the market and why there might be an increase in properties in your specific area. So another point to just say, hey, stay on top of it. Know that there is going to be more competition. Doesn't mean that you can't be successful. It just means you've got to stay on top of those things.
So
Partic-
Emily, I'm on my
Mhm.
site, the Airbnb site, and I'm on your calendar like that. How do you get the comparisons to show up?
Let's have you share your screen and I'll walk you through it. If you don't mind, let's do it that way.
Okay, so let me see if I figure out how to share.
Yep, so hover over your screen at the bottom of Zoom, like
Yep,
right.
I got the
Yep.
share,
Okay.
so that's not
Perfect.
sharing the right screen though, so maybe I gotta move it over.
And then make that bigger. Perfect.
Okay, that'll be on this one. Are you there yet?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
So, okay, click on, it looks like you have, so the 20th and 21st you've clicked on. Um,
Yeah.
so if you then bring your mouse over to the right side where all the black and white text is, you're going to see the price per night and click that big box. Just click on it there. And now below that, similar
Okay.
things. Yeah, click there. Then, so I mentioned this earlier, but it's worth repeating. So you've got booked listings and unbooked listings. I would always double check if you want to see like, oh, okay, all these people are already booked. Click on one of those other listings and actually go to those specific dates and confirm if they truly are booked. Um, so just so you're not getting the wrong information, I would say Price Labs is usually more accurate with that. Do you remember the specific dates that you?
No, 16th and 17th.
I think it was 20 and 21, but I'm not sure what
Okay.
month.
I was gonna say, I think 2021.
What month was it?
Yeah, these are booked January 2021.
Cool. Yeah. So that's accurate. I just know when this first came out, I would click on listings that it was telling me they're already booked for those dates, and I would be like, wait a minute, they're vacant. So yeah, I like to go to unbooked listings too and look at that information. So your property is the red. So it's almost reassuring. You can see all these properties that just popped up as unbooked because we're in January and it's a, what are these dates? Wednesday, Thursday. Um, is that right? Like, what is the current date?
Yeah, I think it's a Wednesday,
Yeah.
Thursday.
Okay. So, it's just much slower. So it's almost comforting in a way of like, okay, I'm not the only property sitting here unbooked. But again, now we're looking at this and we have to think to ourselves, there's all these listings that have these dates available, and I have to fight for scraps almost in these slower months in the less desirable weekdays. So you do not want to be the property that's $270 a night when all the other properties, I'm just doing a quick glance, are roughly, 160, 170. So you're, looking at your price, I would say you're good where you are because you're also in these slower months going to be fighting for those bookings that could go to a two-bedroom or a three-bedroom property. I'd still take that over being vacant. I'd still take a guest that says, "Oh, I can book this two-bedroom house for 160 a night, or I can book Steve's five-bedroom house for 160 a night." It's a no-brainer. Otherwise, you're going to be vacant.
Hmm.
So you're kind of competing with these properties that are smaller in these slower seasons. So I think it's fine when you're doing comping. You don't want to be like significantly below the two-bedroom, three-bedroom properties if you're a four-bedroom, five-bedroom, but you might say, I'm okay with aligning with those for these slower dates.
Okay.
Yeah. But generally, like a quick glance at what you've got going on, I feel like you're priced well, especially for a newer listing. You're still new. How many reviews do you have at this point?
I think 15,
Nice. Way to
15
go.
reviews for 15 bookings. So
Amazing. Good job. That's so
one
great.
for everyone every time. So
Awesome. That's so cool. That makes me so
even
stoked.
a guy I gave one, I only gave him a review of one and he still gave me five. But that's because I waited until the 13th day and a half to give his review back after he destroyed my place.
Good. Thank you for being honest. That's one of my biggest pet peeves is hosts that, I mean, some property managers have their own systems and they have very, very large companies and they don't care to support the hosting community, but it's not fair, in my opinion, to leave a good review for a guest that was bad. So you took the time.
Well, it was bad. I mean, he did $800 worth of damage to our house, and I submitted the bill to went through Airbnb, and 10 minutes after I submitted, he paid it.
Oh, the guest paid it.
Yes, paid it right
Good.
away. I couldn't hardly
Good
believe it.
for
It's like I just sent it and he paid it. There must be something wrong here.
them.
He knew he did wrong.
Yeah.
And I had
Yep.
all the photos and everything to stand up for it. So
Good.
I was good to him. That's why I got 5 stars. So we
Yes.
treated him very well. So, and he knew it, you
Yeah.
know.
Yep. It sounds like, I mean, this is just another good reminder, especially for anyone who's watching this call back later. So did you have time-stamped photos of
Yes. Yeah, my cleaner's got all time stamped and it.
good?
Yeah, he knew what he did, and it's really was sad because like our fifth guest that was in there, and I spent a lot of money fixing this place, making this place, and it's like makes you sick, they had beds broken and
Yeah.
condoms and blood all over the place, and
Yeah.
oh, it was terrible.
Yeah, it's kind of like an initiation for new hosts to go through something like that because it won't be your last time.
Oh no.
You have to have a first time and it will happen at some point. And the first time it happens, like I guess the one of the downfalls of being local to properties is that you can go see that in person. And I have been to our mountain property after it was trashed in it's kind of devastating. Like it makes you just feel a little emotional when you've put all that much into, money and time and thought into the property itself. But after
They
it
flooded
happens
two
once,
floors. They flooded 2 floors with the toilet. Oh my
yeah,
God, it was.
yeah, that could be a sign that pricing is, I mean, it's hard to say. Like that can happen even with high paying guests. So there's a trade-off and that's another I guess, good segue into looking at things like Wavo. So I don't want to say you got lucky. You did the right things, and a lot of guests will just own up and pay, especially if you're like, hey, caught you red-handed. Here's the documentation. You're not going to get away with this. Airbnb's going to end up charging your card anyway for this damage, so you might as well pay
Yeah,
it.
but it didn't even get to be that kind of a discussion. I mean, it wasn't even 10 minutes. It's like it
Mhm.
took me hours to get it all put together, and it's like
Yeah.
I hardly get it sent, and it was already paid.
Yeah.
So
That won't
there,
always be the case.
no, I'm sure it
Sometimes,
isn't.
yeah. And that's where things like we've talked in the past about Wavo, for example, and Hospitable is integrating with Wavo, which is a third party. It's essentially a sister company to Proper Insurance, where you can buy a damage waiver per reservation for a certain amount and have that for peace of mind, where then you don't need to use air cover or go to the guest. If that were to happen, you would just submit all of the information to Wavo, and Wavo then would pay you. And you're not going to fight with Wavo, as I haven't used it yet, but you're not going to fight with them as much as you might have to fight with air cover. And that takes away eventually, if you start to have more properties, it's harder to keep track of, okay, I have to wait till the 13th day at the last minute, the last hour, unless you have an assistant or, help or, really good systems and operations, making sure that you get those submitted in time or you will miss claim dates. So with one property or two properties, totally manageable to kind of put it on your calendar and handle it that day. But it takes away that sometimes you'll have situations where a guest did not intentionally damage things. In your case, Steve, that guest was, you know what? They did it on purpose. They wanted to have a party. I don't have any problems with guests like that sending them the bill. But some guests will actually damage things. And I mean, we had a couch scribbled on with pen, an innocent 3-year-old child. I hope it wasn't an adult. Could have been, but you know, made a mistake. And that could have cost them thousands of dollars. So it's instances like that where you're like, man, I don't really want to go back and forth with the guest about this. And that's where places like Wavo are super helpful because you never have to be like, hey, guest, you should feel really guilty about what your 3-year-old did. And you don't have to have those interactions. So I'm going to start using damage waivers this year, so I'll be able to report back to
You know what
you.
the cost is per is it by a
Yeah.
percentage?
It, Dana, did you have
I
some?
was just gonna, well, I was gonna ask if when you do it, like, A, what is the cost? Because you said you could do it per booking, and then is it a flat fee? Is it a percentage? And then
Yeah,
also, how do you like, do you factor that into the cost of like your listing, or how do you normally like, how would you set that up?
yeah, all great questions. And I will say, just as a disclaimer, obviously, I'm not like a representative for Weibo, so I don't know all the ins and outs, and they'll probably have a different price points for different people based on how many listings you have and things like that. But generally, oh gosh, I don't want to say the wrong number. I think it's anywhere between like $30 and $60 per reservation. I cannot remember off the top of my head. I recently spoke with a representative, so don't take what I
Is it
say at
called
face.
Wavo? Wave?
Yeah, Waivo. Um, I should have a referral fee or something for you guys. Tell them I sent you. But anyway, they are able to, yeah, it's whatever costs. I don't remember the exact amount, but it's not $100 and it's not $10. It's somewhere in a more reasonable range. And then you would add that just like you have a pet fee. You would add it you can add management fee, community fee, linen fee, all of those fees in Airbnb and VRBO, and or add it into your nightly rate and factor that in so that it's a pass-through expense to your guest. Or if you don't want to raise your pricing and you want to come out of your pocket and factor that into your underwriting sheet as an expense to your business, you can do it that way too. So, it's not flat. I believe you can select per reservation if you'd like to choose that, uh, the waiver. But to me, it's like, how would you ever know which guests are going to be the ones that cause the damage? So you might as well buy the damage waiver for every guest. You can look at factors like higher risk situations where you're thinking, I'm, a little hesitant. This guest didn't have any reviews, but I want to accept it and give them a chance. Maybe I'll buy the damage waiver for this specific guest because they didn't have any reviews. That would be an example. Or maybe in my experience, now I'm like, I kind of want to buy a damage waiver for anytime I host children because they take pens to couches. So you'd kind of determine your thresholds for when you do or don't purchase that damage waiver. But yeah, it's worth speaking to a representative for sure of their company. Hopefully that answers some of your questions, Dina.
Yeah, I have another question actually. We got, and I don't know if you've heard of this before, and also how we should respond. Well, Frankie wrote, sure, we can discuss, but I don't know if this gets flagged with Airbnb. So I'll read you what they said. Someone messaged for today, like same day booking, but just trying to reach out. Hey, saw your place and wanted to reach out. We run a very popular page on social media called at rental underscore stays. We have 30 387,000 followers on social media. We help Airbnb hosts like you get more visibility and bookings, no upfront costs. We only take a small cut from the bookings we generate from you. If you're interested, how we can collaborate, the app limits DMs so we can continue the conversation on our page. Looking forward to hearing from you on our rental page, the one with whatever, this many followers and the green logo. And then it was like our pre-approval like messages and things like that. And then Airbnb had like the little blurb on the bottom that says, be careful with this request. Tell us if this is a problem or if everything is okay. So, what's
Mhm.
your recommendation for that?
Well, let me ask you. So, and this is just to kind of get you thinking how I would think. What are your initial gut reactions and thoughts? And then we'll kind of comb through various opinions and anyone else can chime in too.
I think sketchy.
Okay. Yeah. I was hoping I don't know if necessarily sketchy. I think that there is, but yes, like you're listening to those. I want you to be confident listening to that intuition because you see that little flag pop up on Airbnb. Someone is soliciting your business via a platform that strictly does not allow that. And so engaging with that back and forth is potentially putting yourself at risk. It sounds like they're soliciting their social media for commission on your bookings. I don't know. That's an interesting one. People are getting really creative with trying to figure out ways to make money off of other people. Um, that is not something that I would necessarily probably even respond to. Your message went out, and so you technically responded. If it's just a inquiry and you have the little buttons that say pre-approve or decline, you don't have to do either of those. I would just move on specific from that, unless you know there is something that sparks an interest for you of trying to promote your property with this
Mm,
company.
I don't think so. No.
Yeah. Yeah. If it was, then that's when I would be on Instagram looking up their social medias and seeing if they're
Mhm.
legit and finding a phone number and being like, hey, I'm ready to make a marketing plan. Let's do this. And then have those
I just
conversations.
didn't know if Airbnb, like, if I should be like flagging them or just let it be like we just said, sure, sure, can discuss. Or I think Frankie just wrote that back. And then I just don't know. I don't want to get us in trouble, but I don't really care. Like, I'm not interested. I'm not messaging them, but I don't know if him writing that back and then not doing anything more, if that's gonna, or if the like offer, whatever booking offer just expires and then nothing more comes of it and we still are okay because we responded to a request or whatever and we didn't like ignore a request so our response time is still good. I don't know. That's
Yeah.
it.
Keep in mind your automated message is a response. So just know for the future that technically is a response to a message. So you don't even have to then send an additional follow-up. Like, sure, we can chat. I don't think that you're going to be punished for someone reaching out to you. The fact that, you said, sure, we can discuss. I don't know if you want to follow up and just say, we're not interested, that's fine. Um, just so it's documented that you didn't do any off-platform communication. I don't think that, the AI and Airbnb is getting so granular with reading every single word and message and like looking for ways to put hosts in the corner and, punish. But if it's really explicit and obvious, AI will pull those keywords. Like, if you think of Book Direct, off-platform, Venmo, Zelle, Cash App. Let's say Frankie had responded and said like, yeah, let's talk on call me, then I don't know, you might get flagged. I don't know all the ins and outs of the engineering behind that, but
Yeah, maybe I'll just write back and just say, thanks, not interested. And just that way it's like there
doc.
and we're not, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's totally fine. And it happens all the time. Like you'll just for anyone listening in later, you'll get messages sometimes from, cleaners that are looking for work or other hosts that are looking to manage. Or I've even had someone reach out and say, "Hey, I'm a local real estate investor looking to buy a property on, in this area. What's your opinions?" You don't have to respond to those. And
We had a golf pro who wanted us to pay him to have our guests get golf lessons to offer golf lessons to them. He's like, thanks,
yeah.
we'll pass.
Yeah, it's creative. I mean, it's one way to solicit business, but it's just the fact that it's explicitly against Airbnb's terms of service. Like true professionals will find your information to market to you in other ways, which there are other ways. And yeah, I mean, but if anything sparks your interest, then I would just find them off platform versus engage in any back and forth on the app, which your intuition and your instinct was spot on with that for sure. So, but you should be fine. You should be all good.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, 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 of course. Hopefully that helps other people because you'll get those questions that come in and sometimes it's annoying and if I'm annoyed, I will just report. So, um, yeah, I would just be prepared in how you're going to respond to those in the future as well. So, any other questions, thoughts? We've had some good, I think, topics today. Pricing, weekday gaps, comping on Airbnb specifically, talking about a damage claim. We talked about Wavo. I guess, soliciting business, that's a good topic, and how to respond to those things. What else, you guys? We've got 8 minutes left. Anyone have anything?
I had asked Becky this, and I think we're gonna hold out. I'm in a Facebook group for physician assistant moms who have vacation rentals or are looking for one. So um, other professionals and someone had made a post talking about like West Coast Florida, and I said we had two properties, but they were saying their budget is for, I want to say it was President's Day weekend, which we still have some time out from that was open at one of our properties. Um, but they said normally the budget that they keep is like 2,000. I think the what we would be charging direct was upwards of like $4,000. And, I would be willing to give some type of discount for another colleague in the field and direct booking versus um, Airbnb. But I asked Becky, I'm like, I feel like it's still kind of far out. What's your take on things? And she had kind of looked at our listing and the numbers and had said to hold off for now. But it's just like, I don't know, because you want to help people out, you want to try to grow and be put out there for other groups and maybe build more of a direct booking um situation versus relying on the OTAs, but it's just like at what cost. So it's hard to navigate. What would you recommend normally for like promotions or for other, you know, guest or direct booking, what would your take be on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So this is definitely it cannot be a blanket answer because it's so individualized. So first things first is I think it brings up a good point that technically, we all are little small business owners at this, if you've got a listing and you're bringing in revenue with an LLC, all the things, right? So you have to think about what is your purpose running this business. I know Steve could probably talk on this because I know you've got your businesses that you run, Steve, and so feel free to chime in on anything, but um, you have to look at what are your specific goals. Are your goals to build a community? And I guess establish your direct booking site so that and sacrifice now so you can really build later because you've got this big marketing campaign and plan. Do you have a plan with that if that's the case? Or is your goal to just meet your expenses? Is your goal to profit every month? And what does your year over year revenue look like to, be able to say, can I afford giving this month away or whatever for 2000 instead of 4000 because my summers do X amount. So there's no, I guess, straight answer. I feel like I say that all the time and it's probably very annoying, but I would say getting really clear on what your goals are for your specific business, and that helps you kind of have this compass as you make decisions for your business. So I know, Dana, just knowing you and getting to know you, that you're the type of person I think that would get a lot of joy in helping a colleague and someone in the healthcare profession. And if that in your eyes is worth that, I guess it's part of your values to help other people and not have every single month be a 25% cash on cash return or whatever, someone else's goals may be, then I would say write those goals down or those values and let that compass guide you with making those decisions. Or decide if you're just going to be more business minded and all of your decisions are business focused. And then you can, like Becky did, kind of plug in those numbers into your spreadsheet. Everyone should have, an underwriting spreadsheet where they're calculating their average daily rates and occupancy and expenses and say, no, my minimum to even scrape by is X amount based on my year-over-year revenue. So I have to meet certain amount to be able to pay all of my bills and not come out of pocket. I know personally my goals are to never come out of pocket for any of my expenses ever. And I want my mortgage met or my rent met, and I want to cash flow a certain amount per year. And that is my guiding compass. Maybe down the road, at a future part in your journey when you've been doing this for more time and you have more to give back, then it could be something that you look into. So that's a really long-winded answer, I guess, to say, what are your personal goals? What are your revenue goals? What is what pillars do you have for your business to help you make these types of decisions? And do what's right for you specifically in your property.
Oh, that's a good answer. Ultimately, I nicely, offered her not the $2,000 budget that she was looking for, but it was like 4,200, I think. And we had said, 3,200 with everything on the direct booking. And then I explained that pricing does vary throughout the year, but based on seasonality, you're, picking a prime time of year and a holiday weekend. And that, we'd love to explore other dates in the future if you're interested during a time that it would fit your budget. But if you do end up coming to the area, I'd be happy to provide any recommendations and just trying to keep it open. And then that way, you know, maybe she'll think of us in the future. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and then there's other people who they have specific dates that maybe aren't the exact dates that we had properties available. And there's other people in the community that other hosts that I've become friendly with. And I, they have seem to have more availability than I do, but I try to say, hey, maybe our property isn't available, but they're a really great host, and I know that they would take care of you too. And then hopefully if the shoe's on the other foot, they would send them to our property too. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that your intuition specifically, and this probably applies to a lot of people in this group, is it's very strong. And I think that you can have the confidence to make those decisions because you're doing it. And I think that that's really honorable. So, yeah, kudos to all of you who are making those tough decisions and establishing those relationships, determining what's best for their business and what's best for them personally. There's so many different reasons that you can do something specific, but the goal is to always be able to back up your rationale for making a decision. I feel like that applies to so many things in life versus just like willy-nilly grabbing at things. And that's how we get really lost in where we're going, especially in the short-term rental business. So I think staying focused, staying aligned, don't do something that doesn't feel right. If it doesn't feel right to give a holiday weekend away for X amount, then don't. And also you can set boundaries around any type of negotiating on the platform. You don't have to participate in negotiating, but you can also be someone who is open to that. And just know based on your values what you do and do not engage in. Um, Sometimes it's worth it. If January is the slowest season and I have someone coming to me with a specific budget and I know that that's what I'm probably going to make for the month anyway by having 5 or 6 turnovers, then it's worth it to me to negotiate with that person and settle on something to fill my month and maybe have a little break. So, a break from turnovers and things. So yeah, I think that these were all really great topics. It is 5 o'clock. I've got to jump on another call. This was a really great conversation. Let me know if you guys have any follow-up questions. You can always pop them into the circle, tag me if you post in the circle, and I'll see it better that way. But thank you all. I appreciate you all being here.
Good seeing you. Thanks.
Yeah, see you guys
Thank
next week.
you. See ya.
Bye.
Okay, bye.